The impossible problem, the silent void of space around research station. Epsilon 7 was broken by the desperate transmission crackling through Dr. Sarah Chen's communications array. She had been cataloging mineral samples from the nearby asteroid field when the distress signal pierced through her quiet morning routine, speaking in a language her translation matrix barely recognized. Emergency, help, The words came through, fragmented, filled with static and what sounded like genuine terror. Sarah's fingers flew across her console, triangulating the source of the transmission. 3 hours later, she watched through the station's main viewport as a damaged vessel limped toward their docking bay. Its hull scarred with what looked like burn marks that seemed to shift and writhe even as she observed them. The being that emerged from the craft stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent skin that shifted between deep purple and silver. 4 arms extended from its torso, and its large, multifaceted eyes reflected the station's lighting like prisms. Despite its alien appearance, Sarah could read the exhaustion and desperation in its posture. "I am Captain Kexthera of the Zephyrion. Exploration Cause," the being said through the universal translator, its voice carrying harmonics that made Sarah's bones vibrate slightly. "My people face extinction, and you may be our final hope." Sarah led the captain to her laboratory, offering what comfort she could. As Kexthera began explaining their situation, Sarah realized she was hearing something unprecedented in her 15 years of xenobiological research. "Our homeworld, Zephyr Prime, has been consumed by what your scientists might call a quantum plague," Kexthera explained, holographic images materializing from a device on its wrist. The images showed a world that had once been beautiful, with crystal cities that grew like living things from the planet's surface. Now, those same structures were dissolving into gray static, reality itself seeming to unravel at the molecular level. The plague began in our capital city 6 months ago. It spreads by corrupting the quantum foundations of matter itself. Everything it touches becomes ... undefined, not destroyed, not transformed, but simply ceases to have a definite state of existence. Sarah studied the readings Kexthera provided, her human mind struggling to grasp the implications. According to the data, the plague didn't just destroy matter, it made matter forget how to exist in a stable form. Atoms lost their ability to maintain consistent electron shells. Molecules forgot their bonding patterns. It was as if reality was developing a form of cosmic amnesia. "We have sought help from every advanced civilization in the galaxy," continued, its voice growing quieter. "The crystalline hegemon, masters of matter manipulation, declared the problem unsolvable after 3 weeks of analysis. The architects, who can rebuild entire star systems, spent a month developing 17 different potential solutions. All failed." The captain's skin shifted to a darker purple, which Sarah's cultural database indicated as a sign of deep sorrow. "Among Zephyrians, the Void Shapers, beings who exist partially outside normal space-time, examined our world for 6 weeks. Even they concluded that the quantum plague represents a fundamental impossibility that cannot be resolved through any known means." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she processed this information. These were civilizations that humans considered impossibly advanced. The crystalline hegemon could transform stars into useful materials. The architects had built artificial dimensions. The Void Shapers existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. If they couldn't solve this problem, what hope did humanity have? 47 different species have examined our predicament, Kexthera said, sharing a holographic list that scrolled past Sarah's vision faster than she could read. Each possesses technology that surpasses human understanding by thousands of years. Every single one has reached the same conclusion. The quantum plague cannot be stopped, contained, or reversed. Sarah watched the data streams showing the plague's progression across Zephyr Prime. Entire continents had already been consumed, leaving behind regions where the laws of physics seemed to be having an argument with themselves. The remaining population of 3 billion Zephyrians had been evacuated to orbital stations, but even those were beginning to show signs of quantum corruption. The Galactic Council has scheduled an emergency session, Kekstara explained. They will officially declare our world unsalvageable and authorize a full evacuation of our species. We have 72 hours before the plague reaches critical mass and potentially spreads to other worlds. The weight of those words settled over Sarah like a heavy blanket. An entire civilization, billions of lives, and a world with 10,000 years of history, all about to disappear because the smartest beings in the galaxy had declared the situation mathematically impossible. But as Sarah looked at the data, something nagged at her. She had spent her career studying impossible biological problems, situations where conventional wisdom said nothing could survive, yet life always found a way. Her human mind, trained to question everything and never accept impossible as a final answer, began turning over the problem from different angles. "Captain Kekstara," Sarah said slowly, "I need to contact Earth. I want to show this data to my colleagues." The Zephyrian skin shifted to what Sarah recognized as confused surprise. "With respect, Dr. Chen, your species is barely a century into spaceflight. Your technology is primitive compared to the civilizations that have already examined our crisis. What could humans possibly contribute that the most advanced minds in the galaxy have not already considered?" Sarah smiled, an expression that the captain had learned to recognize during their conversation. "Maybe that's exactly the point. Maybe we're too primitive to know that this is supposed to be impossible." Within hours, Sarah had established communication links with Earth's Global Research Initiative. She transmitted the complete Zephyrian database to research centers in Geneva, Tokyo, Moscow, Cape Town, and São Paulo. What happened next would have surprised even her. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, an engineer from the Mexico City Institute of Technology, was the first to respond. His message came through just 4 hours after receiving the data. "Sarah, this is fascinating. Has anyone tried approaching this as a containment problem instead of a cure?" Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the Kyoto Quantum Research Center sent her analysis. 6 hours later, the plague doesn't actually destroy quantum states, it randomizes them. That means the information is still there, just scrambled. We might be able to work with that. Professor David Okafor from the Lagos Center for Advanced Physics added his voice 12 hours in. "This reminds me of something we dealt with in quantum error correction. The pattern looks familiar, just on a much larger scale." As responses poured in from human researchers across the globe, Sarah realized something remarkable was happening. While the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had approached the quantum plague as an impossible problem to be solved through superior technology, humans were looking at it as a puzzle to be solved through creative thinking. The Galactic Council's emergency session was broadcast across all member worlds, and Sarah found herself watching alongside Captain Kekstara as representatives of 47 species delivered their final verdicts on the Gaffrian crisis. The crystalline hegemon's representative, a being of living diamond who communicated through light frequencies, presented their conclusion. quantum plague represents fundamental breakdown of causality. No technological intervention possible within known physics. The architect delegation, existing as pure thought, forms housed in crystalline matrices, delivered their analysis through direct mental projection. Temporal spatial reconstruction attempted across 17 probability streams. All scenarios result in accelerated plague expansion. Solution mathematically impossible. One by one, each species that had examined the problem confirmed what everyone already knew. The quantum plague could not be stopped. The most advanced minds in the galaxy, armed with technologies that bordered on magic, had reached a unanimous conclusion. Then something unprecedented happened. Sarah requested permission to address the council. The chamber fell silent as her image appeared on screens throughout the galactic capital. A human from a species barely considered worthy of council observation, asking to speak on a matter that had stumped civilizations millions of years old. Honored council members, Sarah began, her voice steady despite knowing that billions of beings were watching. I represent the Human Research Initiative examining the Zephyrian crisis. We would like to propose a different approach. Laughter, or its equivalent in various alien cultures, rippled through the chamber. The idea that humans might solve something the galaxy's greatest minds could not was apparently amusing to many species. But Captain Kexthara, still standing beside Sarah in her laboratory, was not laughing. Its skin had shifted to a color that translator identified as desperate hope, and Sarah realized that humanity might be the Zephyrians' last chance. The council vote was swift and unanimous. 72 hours remained before full evacuation of the Zephyrian system would commence. The quantum plague had been officially declared unsurmountable by galactic science. As the transmission ended, Sarah turned to Captain Kexthara. We're not giving up. Humans don't work that way. The human solution, while the Galactic Council prepared evacuation fleets for the Zephyrian refugees. Dr. Sarah Chen found herself at the center of something that had never happened before in galactic history. A species refusing to accept the impossible. Her laboratory aboard Epsilon 7 had become the coordination center for what the human research teams were calling Operation Last Stand. Holographic displays showed real-time connections to laboratories across Earth, where thousands of researchers were working round the clock on the Zephyrian problem. Captain Kexthara watched in fascination as humans approached the quantum plague from angles no other species had considered. Where the crystalline hegemon had tried to overpower the plague with superior technology, and the architects had attempted to redesign reality around it, humans were asking a fundamentally different question. What if they didn't need to cure it? Dr. Rodriguez, show the captain your containment model, Sarah said. Activating a holographic projection from Mexico City, Marcus Rodriguez appeared as a tired but excited figure, his laboratory clearly showing signs of 3 days without sleep. Coffee cups and food containers littered his workspace, and his usually neat hair stuck up in all directions. Captain Kexthara, we've been looking at your quantum plague all wrong, Marcus explained, his enthusiasm overriding his exhaustion. Every other species tried to eliminate it or reverse it. But what if we just gave it something else to do? The hologram shifted to show a three-dimensional model of the plague's behavior pattern. Unlike the other analyses Kexthara had seen, this one didn't try to trace the plague's quantum mechanics in detail. Instead, it focused on the plague's behavior as a system. Look at how it spreads, Marcus continued. It's not actually malevolent or chaotic. It follows very predictable patterns. It seeks out ordered quantum states and randomizes them. But Dr. Tanaka discovered something incredible about that process. The display switched to show input from the Kyoto laboratory, where Dr. Yuki Tanaka had been analyzing the plague's quantum signatures for 48 hours straight. Her laboratory was equally chaotic, filled with quantum measurement devices and multiple blackboards covered in equations. The plague doesn't destroy information, Yuki explained, her voice hoarse but determined. It scrambles it. Every atom, every molecule that gets consumed by the plague, the information about what it was is still there, just randomized. It's like having a book with all the right letters, but they've been shuffled randomly throughout the pages. Captain Kekstara's skin shifted to a color Sarah had never seen before. One the translator struggled to interpret before settling on intellectual amazement. But if the information still exists, Kekstara said slowly, then theoretically it could be unscrambled. Exactly, Sarah said, her excitement matching that of her colleagues. But we realized something else. The plague needs ordered quantum states to survive. It's like a fire that needs fuel. What if we gave it artificial fuel while simultaneously containing the real matter? The holographic display shifted again, showing the solution the human team had developed. It was elegant in its simplicity, and utterly revolutionary in its implications. Professor David Okafor joined the conference from Lagos, his laboratory showing evidence of international cooperation on a scale that impressed even the experienced Zephyrian captain. Researchers from 6 different countries had been working together, sharing data and building on each other's discoveries in real time. We call it the persistence protocol, David explained. Instead of fighting the plague directly, we create quantum decoy states, artificial matter with deliberately unstable quantum foundations that the plague will prefer over stable, real matter. While it feeds on the decoys, we use quantum containment fields to isolate the infected areas. Meanwhile, added Dr. Elena Vasquez from the São Paulo Quantum Institute, her image joining the growing conference, we use the plague's own randomization process against itself. By introducing controlled quantum noise into the system, we can actually force it to partially unscramble the information it has already scrambled. Captain Kekstara stood silent for several minutes, processing what it was hearing. These humans, with their primitive technology and impossible confidence, had developed a solution that required no advanced matter manipulation, no dimensional engineering, and no reality restructuring. They had simply refused to accept that. The problem was impossible. How long would implementation require? Kekstara asked. Sarah looked at her team's calculations. 36 hours to build the necessary quantum containment devices. Earth has already authorized the emergency production protocols. Every major industrial nation is retooling their quantum laboratories right now. What followed was something the galaxy had never witnessed, an entire human civilization mobilizing to save a world they had never seen, for people they had just met. The Global Research Initiative became the largest cooperative effort in human history, surpassing even the climate restoration projects of the previous century. In São Paulo, quantum physicists worked alongside factory workers to build containment arrays. In Tokyo, engineers designed quantum decoy generators using principles borrowed from video game programming. In Moscow, mathematicians calculated quantum noise patterns while musicians helped them understand harmonic interference patterns. The most remarkable aspect, from Captain Kekstara's perspective, was that humans were coordinating this effort through what they called social media and international cooperation protocols. No central artificial intelligence, no governmental decree, no species-wide neural network. just humans choosing to work together, because they had decided that an entire civilization was worth saving. Dr. Chen established a direct communication link with the few remaining research stations orbiting Zephyr Prime, allowing the human team to monitor the plague's progression in real time. The quantum corruption had accelerated, consuming another continent while they worked. 18 hours until critical mass, reported the Zephyrian research station. The plague will become self-sustaining and potentially spread to neighboring star systems. Sarah looked around at her international team of colleagues, their images filling her laboratory through holographic projections, exhausted, running on caffeine and determination, but none of them even suggesting they should give up. "We're going to make it," she announced to both her team and Captain Kexthara, "because that's what humans do." The deployment began with 12 hours to spare. Human cargo ships, hastily retrofitted with quantum containment technology, arrived at Zephyr Prime carrying devices that looked primitive compared to Galactic standard equipment. Where other species' technology was elegant and sophisticated, human quantum containers were bulky, noisy, and required constant adjustment, but they worked. The first containment field activated around the plague's primary source in the former Zephyrian capital. Instead of the steady expansion that had characterized the plague for months, its growth suddenly stopped. The quantum decoys deployed by human engineers provided exactly the kind of unstable matter the plague preferred. Drawing it away from the planet's remaining stable matter, Captain Kexthara watched from the orbital command center as green indicators began appearing on the status displays. The plague wasn't being destroyed or cured, it was being managed, contained, and slowly starved of the ordered quantum states it needed to survive. Phase 2 implementation, Sarah announced from Epsilon 7. The second wave of human devised devices began the delicate process of introducing controlled quantum noise into the infected regions. Instead of trying to force the randomized information back into order, they were using the plague's own mechanisms to partially restore quantum coherence to the scrambled matter across the galaxy. Representatives of the most advanced civilizations watched in stunned silence as humanity accomplished something they had declared impossible. The quantum plague that had defied the greatest technological achievements in galactic history was being contained by beings who still used chemical rockets and silicon computers. The process took 14 hours of continuous work, with human teams monitoring and adjusting their devices while Zephyrian researchers provided real-time feedback on the plague's behavior. When the final containment field stabilized, and the quantum decoys successfully drew the plague away from all remaining inhabited areas, Captain Kexthara experienced something its species called emotional resonance overflow, a condition humans might recognize as being overwhelmed with gratitude. Dr. Chen Kexthara said, its voice carrying harmonics that the translator rendered as profound respect. Your species has accomplished something that 47 advanced civilizations declared mathematically impossible. How? Sarah smiled, looking around at her colleagues who were cheering and congratulating each other across their international network. Because we were too stubborn to believe it was impossible. And because we decided that your entire civilization was worth the effort. The Galactic Council's follow-up session 3 days later was unlike any in recorded history. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive found themselves studying human scientific papers and trying to understand how beings with such limited technology had succeeded where they had failed. Captain Kexthara addressed the Council personally, its testimony broadcast across all member worlds. The humans succeeded not because their technology was superior, but because their approach was fundamentally different. Where we saw an impossible problem, they saw a puzzle. Where we calculated acceptable losses, they refused to accept any losses at all. Where we applied our greatest technologies, they applied their greatest strength, the absolute refusal to give up on something they believed was worth saving. The persistence protocol became required study material at the galaxy's most prestigious scientific institutions. More importantly, it established humanity's reputation as what other species began calling the persistent ones, the species that didn't know when to quit. Dr. Sarah Chun's final log entry, recorded 3 months after the successful containment of the quantum plague, captured what many species would come to understand about humanity. Today I received a message from Zephyr Prime. Their cities are being rebuilt. Their people are returning to the surface, and Captain Caxthara has been appointed as the new ambassador to humanity. When I think about what made the difference, it wasn't our technology or our intelligence. It was our stubborn, illogical, completely human refusal to accept that some problems are unsolvable. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the most sophisticated one. Sometimes it's just refusing to give up. In the years that followed, as humanity gained full membership in the Galactic Council and became known throughout the galaxy as the species that specialized in impossible problems, Sarah often reflected on the lesson of the persistence protocol. The universe was full of advanced civilizations with incredible technologies, but sometimes what the galaxy needed most was a species too stubborn to know when to quit, and humans, Sarah realized with pride, were very, very good at not giving up. Asterisk.